In the beginning, Vladimir Putin was playing a very complex multi-level game, always outmaneuvering his opponents, to the stage where now he has created a complete checkmate against the global banking elite, the Khazarian Mafia, and World Zionism. It is now obvious that Vladimir Putin has fully exposed Israel, America, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey for its blatant lies about ISIS and terrorism in general. Soon, all the world will know that all this terrorism, ISIS, ISIL, Daesh, al-Nusra, al-Qaeda, etc., are all synthetically engineered by the cabal and its surrogates and pawns to drag the whole world into wars, chaos, and mass death that are designed to serve as provocations to justify illegal, unprovoked wars for profit and access to other nations' natural resources and land. In his speech at the United Nations General Assembly, Russia's President Putin took the time to absolutely pulverize Western actions in Syria. He denounced Washington's support for militants in Syria as illegal and ineffective. The Russians are making it clearer that they are not going to tolerate this U.S. strategy. Providing military support to illegal structures runs counter to the principles of modern international law and the United Nations Charter. This situation, Putin warned, would lead to the rule of force controlling the world, where selfishness rather than collective work would dominate relations upon a system of dictate rather than equality. After the speeches, Putin and Obama sat down for a nearly 2-hour conversation. The very next day, the situation in and around Syria changed dramatically over the course of one day. The U.S. is no longer insisting on Assad's resignation. The U.S. is not opposing Russian military involvement in operations against ISIL and is prepared to enter into immediate negotiations with Russia about the formation of a united front against terrorists. That means that all these sudden changes were the result of a deal being struck by the Obama administration and Russia. Russia's Air Force launched strikes on ISIL strongholds in which 8 ISIS targets hit during 20 combat flights, after Assad asked Moscow for military assistance, and the Federation Council approved the use of the Russian Air Force against the terrorists in Syria. The Russians have enough sophisticated weapons to counter-attack Assad's enemies. With a Russian military canton deployed to Al-Assad International Airport with an air bridge from Russia involving military aircraft, such as Antonov 124 Condor transport flights, any attempt at a no-fly zone will be met with a quick Ruski reply. Putin is providing Syria with satellite intelligence, digital communications, code breakers, drones, Su-30 Russian air superiority fighters, the Su-24-25 ground attack fighter, the Hind-24 Russian attack transport helicopter, T-90 tanks, the Sa-22 surface-to-air missile system. The tables are turning on those who conspired against Syria, boast Syria's Foreign Minister Walid al-Mualim. But what is turning the tide is Russia's satellite intelligence system. The LL-20 is an ELINT, or Electronic Intelligence Platform. It is equipped with a wide array of antennas, IR, infrared, and optical sensors, a SLAR, which is a side-looking airborne radar, and satellite communication equipment for real-time data sharing. The aircraft is Russian Air Force's premier spy plane. Washington and Moscow are pursuing 2 different agendas in Syria. Russia stands for international law. The United States stands for its will, its hegemony, and its independence from international law. The United States has a policy of destabilizing any country that has an independent foreign policy. Washington has destroyed, more or less, 7 countries in the past 14 years through illegal and unjustified wars. The time to attack NWO agents in Syria is long overdue. They need to taste their own medicine, and I'll make sure they remember me for eternity. A quote from the Syrian President Assad. In Syria, the so-called Free Syrian Army has proved itself to consist of masked men who are not who they claim to be. Most, if not all, are not even Syrians, but a proxy army. Mossad, CIA, and MI6 agents, at ISIS and the rest, which have been found in their ranks along with many nationalities from all over the Middle East. They have proved to be an inauthentic opposition to the Syrian government. This agenda is to fulfill the secret cabal plan for what is called Greater Israel, which engulfs almost the whole Middle East. This plan calls for genocide of all nations that are targeted for destruction, including Palestinians, Syrians, Kurds, Iraqis, and Iranians, all to be either mass murdered or driven from their ancestral homes. In reality, ISIS was masterminded by the RKM World Zionists and the Likudists, whose strategy has been to create a strong need for America and Europe intervention against ISIS, but with the actual goal of manipulating America into waging war against ISIS as a disguise for eliminating Assad and destroying Syria, the Kurds, and then Iran. Up until now, the only ones fighting ISIS were Assad's military, Hezbollah, and the Kurds. Although the US claimed to be dropping supplies to anti-ISIS forces, it is now apparent that almost all of this equipment and arms drops went to ISIS mercenaries by accident. Early on, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu visited Moscow and made a grand entrance, complete with the chiefs of the IDF and Israeli intelligence, to cry to Putin that Iran and Syria are arming the so-called terrorist group Hezbollah, and that Syria is opening up a second front for Iran in the Golan Heights. The Syrians have kept the armistice on the Golan Heights marked by the UN-brokered ceasefire Purple Line. Assad has no intentions of violating the ceasefire, and Putin knows it, and told Bibi to go back to his side of the Purple Line and stay there. Putin then showed Bibi the door with a short, non-committal statement about understanding Israel's position. The Kremlin isn't the adoring US Congress that fawns all over Zionists bearing cash and votes. For with Russia's ongoing assault on ISIS in Syria, the ability of the Israeli army to make airstrikes has been severely limited, as it could hit Russian military assets by mistake. The carefully calculated mass migration agenda. This massive immigration to Europe of civilians displaced from ISIS war zones has been orchestrated and financed by these same entities. Their objective is to force Europe to view the actual cause, their unwillingness to help stop ISIS. Transcripts of telephone intercepts published in Italy claim to provide evidence that ISIS is threatening to send 500,000 migrants simultaneously out to sea in hundreds of boats in a psychological weapon against Europe if there is military intervention against them in Libya, Syria, and Iraq. The European police don't know who is who, whether they are legitimate refugees or other sinister agents blending in for future infiltration. Some insiders believe that this engineered immigration is a punishment against European nations who are participating in the boycotting, divestiture, and sanctioning of Israel, the BDS movement, over its apartheid, blockade, imprisonment, torture, and genocide against Palestinians. General Wesley Clark has revealed that the US DoD has had a long-time secret plan to take out 7 Mideast nations. ISIS is a part of that agenda, which is really an extension of this worldwide cabal agenda, which has unfortunately infiltrated and hijacked much of the Pentagon, the US Congress, and the US administration. Fortunately, there are some new folks in the American High Military Command and American intel that refuse to continue to allow America to be used as Israel's war machine. They are making sure that this incriminating information is being leaked and used to checkmate this illegal, unconstitutional, and treasonous use of the American military to fight any more wars for Israel and the RKM World Zionists. There are also changes happening in Ukraine as part of the deal brokered with the Obama administration, such as revoking its green light for military action to Poroshenko's regime, as well as weapons of a caliber less than 100mm would be pulled back 15 kilometers behind the front line, which actually signifies an end to the hostilities. For the preceding 7 months, no one had been able to reach an agreement on this point. All this occurred less than a day after Vladimir Putin's speech in New York and his meeting with Obama, signifying that a deal has defiantly taken place. So far, these are the only first fruits. Clearly, there is more to come. But the trend is clear. The US has acknowledged the legitimacy of Russian claims that Ukraine is within Russia's sphere of interest. It is now obvious that Israeli, CIA, Saudi, and Turkish mercenary forces, referred to as ISIS, ISIL, Daesh, al-Nusra, al-Qaeda, have now painted themselves into a corner with no easy way out. If they do, which means joining in the new international coalition to fight and destroy ISIS et al. On the ground in Syria and Iraq, they will be helping destroy their secret mercenary armies, which they spent billions of dollars on and many years recruiting as young orphans off the streets of Saudi Arabia and other Mideast nations, and training in special mind control training camps. This could set off some serious revenge attacks by these mercenaries against Israel and Saudi Arabia, once they figure out they are being abandoned and set up for destruction by their main supporters and controllers. If they don't, which means they refuse to join in the international coalition to fight and destroy ISIS et al. On the ground in Syria and Iraq, they will be exposing their total hypocrisy for the whole world to see and understand. And this includes their own constituents and previous supporters. Meanwhile, the cabal-owned media are hot at work with propaganda for the sheeple, but the sheeple are slowly waking up. If Putin can get Obama to go along with his proposal, then this would mark one of the greatest diplomatic triumphs of his 15 years in power. This means Russia's victory is now official. The only question is, victory over whom? Certainly not over Obama, but over a powerful supranational grouping which uses the United States as a battering ram in order to plunge the world into a new Middle Ages. Time will reveal the significance of that. But looking at how the global picture evolved between September 29th and 30th, we can see that Putin really got through to the intended audience for his statements. The plan of taking down Syria, the Kurds, Iraq, and Iran is just about an impossible dream that's driving Bibi, the Likud, the KRM, and their American Zios in the USG and Pentagon. It's driving them crazy. They don't know what to do because there is no longer an easy way out. The next few months will be interesting, with Russia now beefing up its military response in Syria and now given official permission by Iraq to set up a military base and use their airspace. Everything Putin has done, both nationally and internationally, is backed up by the law and has never been outside of it. The true genius here is Assad. He is certainly right in telling NWO agents that he is not going to be removed from power and let them do whatever they want in Syria. Assad is the true Lion King, fighting for the freedom of every person and nation of this planet, fighting every country disguised as ISIS. And Vladimir Putin strongly backs him up. Their kings have been craftily placed in checkmate by master statesman and master chess player Vladimir Putin. Checkmate. Switzerland is also changing its tune, which indicates that it could be letting go of some of its expandable gophers, who are in the limelight, that appear on the surface to be the main power source, which clearly they are not. There are clearly things happening below the surface. The Iranian nuclear deal has nothing to do with Iran building a useless nuclear bomb that cannot be detonated at any time or any place. It's about discovering the bending of light in this 3D illusion, which Iran has discovered, rendering any military complex useless, amongst other things. The threat of some of these nations, like the UK using nuclear bombs or Israel's Samson option, is nothing but a nuclear hoax. The negotiating is about keeping a red line with what technologies they can release to the public. Soon, things are going to change for the better. But unfortunately for this to happen, the old world order of things has to collapse. But a one world government? Certainly not. This will be shared by many powers. Ahead lies financial currency wars and no doubt some false flag events. The cabal's dream is still a racial war between Muslims and Christians and social unrest with martial law across Europe and the US that will greatly benefit the cabal financially. Unfortunately for them, they are being exposed on every level. A world order must be the objective, just like in our hidden past, working in harmony with all nations. Did you also know the cabal have kept all patents since the 1900s away from the public? That will benefit all mankind. Instead, they release useless technology, ones that have no real value, rather than to occupy the minds. We have the technology to do anything, to fix this world in months, and to eliminate poverty and every sickness known to man, including the ones they have introduced. Please watch the trailer now released, 6,000-year-old Health Secrets, a very powerful coming documentary that will go into many, many subjects on health and spirituality. A must-see, sourced at the highest level of the knowledge pyramid. You will soon discover this is a documentary like no other.